hello, here I am on the final day of Fright Fest. Anyone would think we're a bit tired, but not us. We're still on it, and I am surrounded by an embarrassment of talent riches, which are, of course, Jake West, director of, amongst other things, the 4K restoration of Razorblade Smile. How you doing, Jake?
I'm doing very well indeed. Had an amazing screening last night of it, and it just looked $1 million. You guys were there. You saw it for the first time.
Saw it in person, and I'm so glad we did. Behind some of the magic we saw on screen was the prop designer, Neil Jenkins. Neil.
Hello.
The wizard, the prop master. Some actors breaking some of your props and stressing you out. We had some stories on set.
Well, yes. Only because it was during the rehearsal and the camera wasn't turning. It would have been fine, but when losing a prop in a rehearsal is always a bad idea.
Have you spent the following years between release and restoration working on actor-proof props?
Very much so. I learned a lot that day. Mainly, don't give Chris Adamson something that you don't care about, that you want to see again, because he will break it.
And completing the trio, we have Aaron Truss. Aaron, how are you? Your credentials speak for themselves. Producer, director of The Cult of VHS, of The Rob Knox Story, of Paradolia. How are you doing, Aaron?
I'm great. You missed out Dreamweaver, but I'll let that one slide. I'm great, thank you. Thank you so much for asking.
I mean, that just comes in your little box that Ben will insert there. Dreamweaver's all. How's your collective Fright Fest been? I will go in reverse order.
It's been absolutely amazing. It's probably like our 6th day because we started with the quiz and rightfully should have won, but we didn't. But that's another story. I'm after you. But there have been some amazing films: Samurai in Time, Ghost Game, the 4K restoration of A Nightmare on Elm Street, and The Hitcher. That was incredible. I saw that with Jake for the first time ever. Rutger Hauer blew me away. And of course, Razorblade Smile. And I'm seeing Generation Terror today.
We will talk a little bit more about Razorblade Smile's restoration moment. How about you? Some favourite picks?
I'm just happy to be here because Fright Fest is obviously one of my favourite places, but I think this is the first time in about 8 years I've actually managed to make it to the festival because I've always been working on something. I haven't actually seen anything other than Razorblade Smile because that's what I came here for last night, but hopefully we'll get to see a couple of things today. Just big shout out to Paul, Ian and Alan and Greg because they always do an amazing job, and it's more than twice the size it was last time I was here, so they're sucker for punishment, aren't they? It's an amazing place though. Absolutely love it.
They certainly are. We've got the weather for being inside today as well. Too much sun. Jake, the man of the hour last night, what was it like seeing Razorblade Smile restored in front of an audience on a cinema screen again after all these years?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite an incredible experience because, like I say, the film is over 26 years old. It's actually older than Fright Fest. So I never thought that we'd be able to get to play it at Fright Fest because our premiere was in 1998 originally. It was Phantasm 98, which Alan Jones was involved in at the time. But to bring it to Fright Fest was like on their 25th anniversary, and I obviously want to wish them a happy 25th. But what an event they've put on. I mean, they're always topping themselves, and props to Paul, Greg, Ian, and Alan. They've really pulled it out of the hat here at the Odeon this time. And playing Razorblade Smile on that screen, beautiful cinema screen with the sound and the projection was just absolutely amazing. So for me, it was like a bit of a dream come true, to be honest. And it's the version of Razorblade Smile that I've always wanted it to be like. So it now looks better. The film has got younger. The film is a vampire. It's younger than it was when it started.
Timeless. And you warned us sitting in the front row, myself included, that being that close we could see something you don't see in films nowadays, film grain. And I tell you what, even in row 1, I loved it. It was great.
Fantastic, yeah. Well, the thing is like I said, at Fright Fest, because pretty much most films now are shot digitally. And there has been a few 4K restorations this year, like The Hitcher and Nightmare on Elm Street, but those films are shot on 35mm with decent budgets. We shot on standard 16mm, so that when we're scanning that at 4K, I mean, you're really going into the grain. You're looking at it like the 16mm standard neg on double perf is like less than half the size of a postage stamp. So it's kind of like so. But I love that look. I love that real analog feel because it really suits a vampire film as well, I think.
I almost want another documentary if you could get to work on this, Aaron. of you and the team painstakingly going through all of these frames of footage and trying to actually restore this?
I went over to Jake's not long ago, and he was showing me the process in which he was cleaning up the footage that had been digitized. It's a process called dust busting, and Jake had to painstakingly go through frame by frame on the whole film. And, you know, I could see on the cursors and the markers that he put on the frames, and he played it through for me, and it was just like all over the screen. Like, I was like, oh my God, you found all these? And I know Jake would probably be kicking himself going, oh, another bit, another bit. When we were watching it last night. The truth is that I watched it last night. I had to basically finish the DCP to give it to Fright Fest, but they were screaming for it last week. So I made up the DCP and did it. I'm actually doing a second pass on that now. But it looks pretty amazing, but there's still some bits where I need to give it just a little bit more attention. But yeah, it was basically despotting, getting rid of dust or hairs and things that come on film. Sometimes burns through the whole film where the neggers age badly. There were some breaks and crackles, and some of it was in quite bad shape. So it took months. But it's looking, like I say, it's looking $1 million now.
A labour of love. And spoilers for our full review of it in a little while. I've never seen it before. I loved it. It's going to be something I recommend. Like, he certainly deserves to find a new audience and get some recognition now, because I said to people as we came out, didn't tell me you'd made a Bond film. It was, but I also know that you made this for an incredibly limited budget, right? And I think you can see every single penny that you put to work and get it onto the screen. I'm going to turn to the man who had to squeeze some of those pennies harder than most, right? So on a 20,000 budget it was?
Well, the actual production budget when we were shooting was £12,000.
Yeah.
That budget. The 20 grand was getting the post, so I had an edit of the film done. We paid to get the Russian tennis in it, and then I edited it on Beta, the Beta SP as it was at the time, which is a tape format. So I had access to a linear edit suite. That's what I used to cut it. So it was 20 grand to get the finished version of the film, and then we took that to Cannes, and then it got picked up. Then we got additional money to fly it up to 35mm, do a proper sound mix. But the film was essentially, the production budget was 12 grand, the post-production budget was another 8, and then it got picked up. But yeah, that's all we had to make the film. So Neil had
what was your portion of that 12?
The art budget for the movie was £500. And I came in under. So there's a lesson there for anyone who wants to be a designer firstly, make a horror movie, because those are things that you can realise. But you also have to have the right people, you have to have the right attitude, and you have to be realistic. But you also have to understand that it's going to be an absurd amount of work, and you must have the ask for forgiveness, not permission attitude, because otherwise you can't achieve the things that you want to achieve. And I think Razorblade Smile stands as a testament of what can be done if you have the ambition and you've got the right people and you have the attitude. You don't necessarily need the resources and the finance as long as you've got the will to achieve it. And we had that but we had no finance at all. I mean, I was given £500 and I came in under. I've got a receipt somewhere, which is my total, and it comes into £496.62, I think, is the final budget spend. And a large proportion of that was hiring 2 flintlock pistols from Bapty, which we stretched in cutting to make it look like we had 6 of them. But there was only 2 of them, and that was my major expense. Everything else was either stuff that we had as our own personal belongings. I mean, Jake shot in his house, his bedroom, Dina's house, her bedroom. We used our own belongings. I have a huge collection of Gothic props and things just from growing up as a goth punk kid. And all the skulls and the coffin we repurposed from Club Death. We just used the 7-pointed stars were made for Club Death. Yeah, we utilised a kind of very DIY ethic and that attitude of like we just do it and worry about whether we were allowed to much later on down the line. And so there's things in there that potentially nowadays you probably wouldn't be able to get away with, but I'm sure there's things now that people can get away with if they just try. So if you're thinking, you can never have a gunfight in the middle of Tunbridge Wells without asking for permission, like we did, and you're probably right. But there's things that you can do if it's that thing of like, you've got to make it happen. If you want to make a movie, there's no one to stop you, and there's no reason why you shouldn't. Well, there's thousands of reasons, but you just don't listen to them. You've just got to go out there and do it. And I think that's the thing that Razorblade Smile shows in abundance. It's not the greatest film. It wears its budget very, very clearly, but we had the attitude, and we had the will and the resources. We had the right people in the right places, I think, to 99.9% of obviously Mr. West, and but we were just happy to help.
Essentially the core crew of that film was just 5 people. That's all I need. I just needed those 5 people to be really very good, and that's the key. If you want to get a film made, you can't make a film on your own. Well, certainly not something like Razorblade Smile. But getting those 5 people who can get, like, you need a good cinematographer, good costume designer, a good production designer and art department. You need someone to record sound, and that's where every day we were struggling to get a sound man, and sometimes I was recording sound, and the sound men were getting beaten up and dropping like flies, and the one person with the other key person we needed, but we never found the right person, so it was a bit weaker than it should have been. We never had a good special effects makeup person, so we had to kind of jury rig a lot of that ourselves, and Neil did a lot of things there too. So that's the person we were lacking. I didn't have that makeup guy who was enthusiastic, and we actually had someone who was a bit of hard work and would disappear. So, but those are the things you have to work with at the time, But like Neil, everything Neil says is absolutely correct about if you're a low budget filmmaker, you don't have to ask anyone to make your film. You just go and do it. And like I say, when we did that gunfight in Tunbridge Wells, like literally now an armed response unit would turn up and probably shoot us. But when we did that, on that day, I did phone the police to say to them, we are going to be shooting guns off in this location.
You told them a different location, so they went there.
I told them the location just in case, because if they did send an armed response unit, because we were using real blank firing guns there, then they are as loud, as noisy as real guns. And this is in a public area. And we did that. And the police said to me, sir, we strongly advise that you do not do this. But they didn't send anyone. They didn't shut us down. Because maybe they didn't even believe us. But if anyone called it in, the advantage of shooting in winter, it's fucking freezing and nobody else was out. I'm not part of the old person walking their dog. But it was, like I say, we really did push the limit of what you could get away with, which was kind of fun as well.
A wonderful story of finding a way. When that was a phrase that we can all be inspired by. And really, as you've said, taking what you had and really getting it up there on screen to make it happen. And Razorblade Smile, as the 4K restoration becomes available and it's easier to get you to get in your hands, everybody listening. I know Ben himself found himself a VHS copy in the shop not too long ago. Get this up here, everybody. It is really good stuff. Before we close out for today, I know, gentlemen, you're also working in the world that we share together as colleagues, as podcasters as well. Tell me a little bit more about Star Craving Cinema. It kept me company on my train ride down here to Fright Fest.
Which episode?
It was Andy Nyman who I was listening to. Tell us a little bit how you got involved in that.
Oh, well, I'm kind of like the Ernie Hudson of the group. So I came in very last minute, and it was purely because they needed my skills as a web designer and social media and doing trailers and things like that to help promote them online. But the backbone has been Jake and Paul. Simon Boswell did an amazing score for the podcast. And also Ashley Thorpe as well has done some amazing animations, which you can catch in your Fright Fest program as well, if you're at Fright Fest. And but yeah, Jake's been producing it. He's been editing it. It's actually, I don't mean to toot our own horn here, but I love listening to the podcast because Jake has a way of just cutting out all the fat, and you get rid of the ums and the ahs, and you get like really good juicy stories out of these guys. And it's almost like a 101 in filmmaking and acting and being in the industry, and finding out about pop culture before I was even born. So I love the show. It's fantastic.
Got another 6-hour train journey home in a bit. I'll be listening to another couple of episodes. Thank you all. I will let you get on, enjoy the rest of some of your last day out in the sunshine. And we've got another couple of films to catch before we all head home until at least Halloween. But yeah, thank you very much, all.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you. You guys are great.
We'll see you for Phantasm 3, right?
Absolutely.